Hello, I've been working to modify my balaur arms sword with the pommel from another balaur arms sword, and the objective was to try to take my cheap swords and recreate the shortened handle with the rotated offset pommel of early medieval swords as discussed mostly on the internet in videos by Roland Warzesha or Demicator. So I cut this to be shorter and I thinned it a little bit, but I mostly went with leaving the tang that's going to go into the pommel only slightly tapered, and then I just ended up widening the hole, and I did the whole thing with this pack of files. It took all week, 10-20 minutes a day, just kind of filing a little bit while my iron farm in Minecraft is running or something like that. And it's sided, so this emblem is going to be out when I hold it like this. So then the pommel goes on in a particular direction to make that happen. And it's ready to be epoxied and peened, basically. I might have to sand this down just a tiny little bit first so that this can tap down. I'm going to grind this off a little bit before I peen it. Obviously that's quite a bit to try to heat with. I'm going to try to use it's under a bunch of stuff, but I'm going to try to use a map gas torch to heat this bit of the tang enough to hammer a peen onto there. So I don't want it to be too terribly long, but I don't want it to be too terribly short because I ended up with quite a bit of space in there. And so then you can see the rotation of the pommel, right? And what that's for is that when I grab it here, okay, now the pommel is fully in my hand. So if I'm holding it with the hammer grip, now this lets this part of my hand be right where I want it to be for strength and control, and then likewise it puts the pommel still firmly in my grip. So now I'm basically squeezing my hand between the cross guard and the pommel, and I can tap the pommel on there if I don't have the wood. Opened it up just a tiny bit too much. I'm gonna have to sand that wood down a little bit, and then it'll stay on well enough and I can put the tension up here, and that's what it's gonna look like. And I have to say, the sword felt so much heavier when it was the other way, and part of it is that I now am working with tension. I'm holding, I have more leverage with my one hand by having the places. I have a wider footprint for my hand. You know, when I'm just holding the handle, I'm only able to put pressure on the inside of the hand, and now I'm able to put pressure on my hand way out here and way up here, and so I have a much larger hand footprint on the handle. And the rotation is really important for getting that edge alignment right, because I have another sword, the sword this came off of, the blade was actually twisted the opposite direction, so I could cut successfully, but I had to swing with my wrist kind of like more this way, and having this pommel rotated out of the way, it kind of brings the blade this way. But then I had to do it. I'm not going to try to bust the sword out and show you the twist, but anyways, I have experience trying to control the rotation of my wrist in an uncomfortable position to successfully cut. And this, I mean, this rotation might be a little more extreme than what you might mostly see, but actually this pommel is so thick up here that it kind of needs to be that extreme, because the pommel is so thick that it needs to rotate that little bit more to effectively get out of the way of my thumb muscle. Yeah. So hopefully tomorrow is Saturday. I'll be able to try to peen that on there. I gotta find the JB weld so that I have some epoxy under the handle. I'm gonna hopefully fill this hole gaps. I'm gonna try to epoxy. I'm gonna try to put epoxy on everything. I might try to clean this handle off a little bit better, and then put this JB weld all through everything. And then while it's still wet, I want to try to heat this peen with a MAP gas torch. I don't know how well that's gonna work. That might not work out very well, but I've made nail rivets with it before, but this is tempered steel. It's a little bit different. Nails are kind of soft already, so I've made nail rivets with the MAP gas torch effectively, and then I'm just gonna try to heat it and then tap it down, and then hopefully it'll be done, you know, and then I can just take my time later on to kind of clean that off, or leave it ugly, you know. So that's my balaur arms, soon to be hopefully customized to an historically accurate early medieval handle, or as close as I can get using parts from 2 balaur arms swords. The other thing about this sword is that the blade is 35 inches long, because it's a longsword. And I don't know if 35 inches is historically accurate for early medieval swords, but I was watching a video by Roland Warzeshan where he's in the museum, and he's talking about 110 centimeters. I don't know, maybe that's more like 33, 34. But that gives me room to play around, and having it a little bit longer might actually be still reasonably historically accurate. So actually I might have a more accurate Viking sword out of this junky balaur arms thing, just because of the length, and now because of the rotated pommel, than you can get from like a really nice Viking sword on the internet.